and go over or share with others. You can also get a copy of the agenda as well if you'd like, which just is a bullet point of what we're going to be covering today. So we'll be looking today at some of the new features in some common screens, as well as common features that are available in pretty much all screens. We're going to be looking at new features in document entry, new features in Advanced Scheduler. We'll do a quick Discover example, and then we'll open up for questions. In the common screens, the common features in screens that we'll be looking at, we're going to have a quick look at the new folio changes in the site and equipment UIs. We're going to look at the tab strip reordering feature, and then we'll be spending a bit of time on the grid features to talk about what you can do with the grids that we've implemented throughout our web screens. We'll also take a look at process UIs and how we can take advantage of that new grid. How can we use the features of the grid to make our processing UIs a little easier for your users? And by processing UIs, I mean our UIs where you would go in, you'd run a search, and you would use that search to process the records. So things like your multi-post, your time manager, your meter processing, things like that. When we get into document entry, we're going to be looking at the tree, the changes we've made to search, how the new recents menu works, how the user-based settings work, the new action menu, and where have assignments, serials, lots, and financials moved to in document entry. We'll have a look at the totals and the new query system. In advanced scheduling, we'll be looking at the new control system there, the new job tree, the agenda view. We'll also have a look at the time entry UI and the changes that have gone on in there, and the new query system in Advanced Scheduler as well. And at the end, we'll open up for questions. Let's get into it. We do have a lot to cover today, so we will be going over everything quite quickly. Hopefully everybody's able to follow along. As I said, the recording will be available later, and you'll be able to look at that recording if you missed anything or just want to look at something again. And as always, you can always just send us an email and we'll help you out as well. So one of the changes that we made to the site UI and also to the equipment UI is we've added a couple of extra tabs that aren't available in the desktop software. We've also in some cases broken the tabs apart. There might have been shared data on some of the tabs. Hopefully those things will be obvious to people who have used the software in the past. The tab name should tell them where they need to go. But our new tabs that we've added here, once I've loaded a site record, is our document tab. So from inside here, you can see a list of all of the documents that this site is connected to. It is filtered by the type, but you can select all, and the state. So open, close, so on and so forth. We've also got the list of postings that the site has. So this is your invoices, your cost only, and your credit notes that have been generated for that site. And there is a limit over here. Obviously, if you've got a site that you invoice frequently, this will show all records, or if that's too many, you can just show the last X amount of records available to you. In most cases, you're most likely looking for the more recent ones, so just showing the 40 most recent might be optimal for your environment. And on the site UI, we also have a new contacts tab, which will list all the contacts connected to the site, as well as the primary contact, with the ability to add new, which will drill to the contacts UI. So a little more of a one-stop shop to see all of the things that this site is touching. And on an equipment record, we won't see the contacts tab, but we do also have a documents tab here. So these are all the documents that the equipment is on, and a postings tab, all the invoices, credit notes, and cost onlys that this equipment has been on. The next thing we want to look at is the ability to move our tabs around. So in all of the Service Manager screens where you see your tab strip usually at the top, but there might be others throughout the software, you're actually able to move these tabs around in the web screen. So I could grab the location tab and I could move it over here. Could also move it to the first tab. If that was the thing that I deal with most often, is the location, I could move it to be the first tab here like that. When I close and reopen the screen, it's now the first tab. And when I load my record, that's the information I'm seeing. Not only can you make it the first tab, but you can just reorder them in an order that makes sense to you to put the tabs that you use most often in, quicker click range. There are a few little caveats there. Firstly, when you click Create New, it always brings you back to the Profile tab, as usually that's the tab that has the linking information. In the case of this, you need a build to customer before you can really get going here. And tabs that are disabled by default until the record is saved aren't able to be made as the primary tab. The system will automatically move you to the next tab. Other than that, feel free to move them around where you want, what makes sense to you, and that is through all screens in the Service Manager web screens. Another feature that is ubiquitous through the Service Manager web screens is our new grid. And I'd like to take you through the features of that now, and we can have a look at what you can do with this grid. Firstly, all the common features that you would expect: resizing columns, moving columns, sorting, is available on all of the grids in our product. We can also export to Excel and save to PDF, and we'll come back and we'll run an export to Excel soon, but those are available on all grids. Other features that are available, the first one we'll talk about is grouping. So I can grab any column and drag it up here to group by that column. And you can see now I've got a nice visual group here of my documents by the type. In my right-click menu here, which is available on any of the column headers, you can just right-click here. I've got an expand and collapse to collapse my groups as needed. But I can also multi-group, so I can grab a second column and drag that up as well. And now I'll just collapse here. I can look at my general service jobs, and then inside there, I've got my different statuses. Of course, you can continue grouping, but once you go a few levels, it might get a little more complicated to read. So we find 1 or 2 levels is really useful, but you can have it in whatever way you want. And these also save. So if I was to exit my screen and come back in, this would persist, and it's per grid, per user, per UI. I can also lock columns. So I can just right-click on a column here and say lock column, and that will lock that column. So as I'm scrolling over to see more data, I'm not losing the context of that important information that I always want to be able to see. And I can lock as many columns as I'd like. And as I move over, you can see that those are locked. I can unlock by just dragging out of the lock section, or I can also right-click again, and there is an unlock column. I can filter in the grid. So I can come over here and I can just type the word pick. And you can see it's filtered and it's found the word pick here. It is a global text-based filter, so I can filter on any of the text that's visible on the screen. That does include dates, numbers, and any text value, and it's a like search. So if I was to type maint or main, you can see here it's found that value here in my description for these first 4 records, and it's also found it over here for this record. It's not case sensitive. It's a very simple global way of filtering your grid. If I just wanted to find the description field, I can do that by using my pen here. And I can come down and choose description. And as we see that final record that was there before where it was finding the main value in the job type code has gone, and now it's just looking in the description field. A handy one in there is if you've got a number, you might want to put in a range from and to values. You can certainly do that. You're able to customize the columns in a lot of the grids. You do that by right-click, customize columns. This will give you a nice column selector, and from in here you can find the columns that you've already added, and if you want to remove one, you just highlight it and remove it, as well as all the other fields that are available in the system to you. Different grids will give you different field sets, and not only do you get different field sets, but you'll get different tables available to you as well. So we're looking at document records. All documents have at least one site. They have a status, they can have a budget, they can have a service center, and they can have it entered by employees. So you can add any of the fields from those tables as well, simply by selecting on them, and the field list here will change. To add a new field, simply select it and include. It will go to the bottom by default. You can move it up and down as needed. And I'll also add in, I don't know, the agreement plan here. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and add some totals. So we'll do our build net total and our build total cost. And when I click OK, we can see we now have build to address 1, agreement plan, build net total, and build total cost. I'm just going to bring these columns over here. So I'm going to reuse them again in a moment. I just want them a little closer to the left, so I'm able to do that there. Going back into my customized columns, there's another feature that you can use here, which are aggregates. So when I double click on a column, I have a few options in here as well. So I can double click here, and you can see I can change the description, the current width, which I can do by just dragging as well. And I've also got an aggregate down the bottom here. So I'm going to change this one from job type code to just job type, get rid of the code there. And I'm going to add on the count. Now the job type is a text field, so I can only count it. But if I look at my totals here that I just added, I can add in sums, mins, maxes, and average. So I'm going to put a sum and an average on my build net total. And I'm going to put the min and the max on my build total cost. So again, in my column customization here, just double clicking any of the columns gives me access to, as it says down here, description, width, and aggregate settings. When I click OK, just going to make this a little wider here. Over here on my job type, I'll just move this over as well. We can see my job type is now just called job type, not job type code. And it has 25 records. There's my sum and my average for my net total, and my min and my max for my total cost. That really comes into power when you start grouping. So if I group, now as I scroll down, when each group hits, we get our subtotals. So there's 14 for JS or GS, and its sum and average, and its min and max. There's 2 for HVAC, and its sums and mins, so on and so forth, and we still have our totals at the bottom. Now remember, these settings persist, so if I come back into this screen, or if I load a different customer, then my grouping is still there, my counts are still there, my aggregates are still there. So it's a way of customizing the grid to show me what I want exactly in whatever format makes sense to me. That information also exports if I was to export. You can see here, there's my totals, and it even locks the column that was locked. We can see the job type column there is not moving as I scroll. So this grid is throughout Service Manager. You'll find it everywhere. Most data sources are shown in a grid in Service Manager as they were on the desktop or classic software. and most of them have the functionality I just covered here. And there's one more thing I'll show you. But before I do that, there will be some grids that you encounter where they only have a couple of fields, and there is simply only a couple of fields available in the database. So there's no customization or things like that. Or this grid here, for example, can only have 5 records, so there's no need for grouping or anything like that. But it will still always have export available. But certainly all of the more complex grids will have all of those features available. The last one that I'll show you here is that you can also chart on a lot of the grids. So if you right click, there's a display in charts feature, and I can come along and say, okay, give me a pie based on the status and show the sum of the net total. That one hasn't done very much for me because most of mine are all active, but you can see here that that's got that for me. So maybe if I make this a column, I'll see a few more of the statuses. There we go. And I can save that. Load a different data set. Oops, there's no data for that one. What I might do here is just put all records so we get a bigger data set. There we go. Go back into my charts window, and my previously saved ones are here, and I just load, and it will load it with the current data set. So that's another handy feature with the new grids. Okay, let's have a brief look at what we can use this grid for in one of our process UIs. So if I was to open up my time manager, and this UI should be fairly similar to the desktop. There's not a lot of new features on here. It works the same as the desktop software does. The main difference is how we use the grid to help us with our process. So we're coming in to do our time retrieval. If you're not familiar with this UI today, if you're not using this UI, one of your customers using this UI, it's just showing me all of my time entries, and I would use this to find the ones that can be retrieved to jobs as the primary use of this, just so if you're not familiar with it, you know where we are. So I might want to grab my time entry status and put it up here because I'm going to be dealing with the ones that are due for retrieval, but I did search for also the ones that haven't got billing yet. And that is a filter available at the top here, but I do have those ticked on, not ready for retrieval. And I do want to see those when I'm doing my retrieval. But now I could also group by resource code. And now all of a sudden, I've got here are all of my records ready for retrieval by user, and if I wanted to just do A and B, I just tick on A and B, and then I could click my retrieve button. So just by using the grid, you've got your standard filters that you've always had at the top of this UI to load the data into the grid, but now you've got the grid to give you more finite control. I might also use my filter over here to put in a date range or something like that and use that to get down to the records that I'm looking for and find them that way. All of the features that we talked about in the last screen, I can use here on this screen to help me make those decisions. And this is all the way through. If I was to open, for example, our day end, maybe I want to group that by record type because I want to do just my credit notes right now. Somebody's about to do statements, and they want to make sure all of that's taken into account. I'm going to run my credit notes. And so just by using the grid, we've made these screens much more usable and flexible. All right, we're going to go into document entry now. And we're going to start with the new features in here. So I want to start with a big change, which is to the user settings, as this controls what the users get to see in their document entry and how things work. If you're familiar with the classic product, we're talking about the tools options menu in document entry, which is a user-based settings. But as we know, over the years, it's sort of become a little more complicated to manage. There's a security flag about whether users can change their own settings. There's settings in there that you definitely don't want some users to have, and you don't want others to have. You know, it's has become more complicated over the years. So we wanted to come up with a new way of providing that for you to both make it easier for your users as well as give you control over the settings that you want to preset for them or not give them the ability to set for themselves. So when I come up to my options here and I go to my user options, firstly, not all the settings have been replicated yet. We've only replicated the settings that match the features that have also been added. So just keep that in mind. One of the things people would always say is, where is the setting? We can't find the setting. So we've redone our settings panel here, and we have our trusty filter at the top here. So if I was looking for settings about items, I can just go ahead here and type item, and the settings that relate to anything with the word item in there will appear for me. So it makes it much easier to find the settings that you're looking for straight up. The second feature that we've done is the admin users are able to control who gets to set what settings, when, and what are the defaults. Now this button is only available for the admin users. A normal user wouldn't see this. And I can come in here, and here is a list of all of my settings. And maybe I want the default item quantity. I can open that one up, and I could change it to 0. Now this setting here is currently a global default, which means no user can change it. It will just take the global default. So if I was logged in as a different user, I wouldn't see this setting in my list of settings because I don't have the ability to change it. Can also change the caption if I want to, and I could save that. Now everybody using the software will get a default of 0, and nobody will be able to change it. But maybe I want everybody to be able to change the default labor type. Some people enter contractor time, some people enter labor, some people enter services, that sort of thing. So I could come in here and I could say this one is user editable and the default is service. Now all of my users, when they come into their tools options, or in this case options user settings, will be able to see and edit the default service type. But if they don't edit it, the default value will be service. And then lastly, maybe I want to restrict people's document types. So I could come in here and I say I want everybody's default value to be job. But for certain users, and I unfortunately only have one user in my Sage system other than the admin user, I want to make theirs quote. So now everybody else in the system will be job, but this user Dan will be quote, and nobody's able to edit it because it's not marked as editable. So you now have complete control over all of the settings, who can change what, who gets what default, and what other defaults are available for the rest of the users. So that's a new feature. Okay, let's look at the search first here and have a look at how that has changed. So in the past, you always had two of your search icons in the classic software, one to load the current record, so job, and one to load any value for, bring up the finder to find any record. We've changed that here. We've just got an all option now from the drop down. And if I was to click all and click the finder, then as I scroll over, we'll see we'll go from jobs to sales to quotes, so on and so forth. And I can use the finder here. If I'm just looking for a specific record for a specific site, but I'm not sure if it's a quote or a job, then I can come here and just put in the site. And as I scroll, I'm going to get all of the different records here. What we've also added into this is the ability to find by one of these values, invoice, credit, or cost only. So I'm going to choose invoice here. This changes to posting, and if I was to bring up the finder, I get a list of invoices. I'm just going to type one in here that I've got, and when I tab away, the invoice itself is not going to load. It's going to go off and load the document that the invoice was generated from, and not only that, it's then going to run the associated search and highlight the lines in the job that document used to invoice. Now, if you're familiar with the classic software, you can open any job, go to the summary tab, right-click an invoice and say find associated lines, and it highlights those in the tree for you. So when you search for a posting, it does that process all in one go for you. Next, let's have a look at our actions menu here. When I load up a record, and I'll just go back to that other one, we use our actions menu here to access all the functions that we used to use on the desktop software via the context buttons that were available. So if I expand this out, and just make it a bit bigger, it is resizable, it is movable, it retains that information, and it is also dockable, which we'll do in a moment. As I move around, the available menu options will appear, what I can do at the level that I'm on. So you're used to this in the classic software. It's just the horizontal strip of buttons, essentially. There also is a few more things in here that may not have been in the buttons, and that's all that is for you. However, it does have some extra functionality. I can filter. I'm looking for just equipment options. I can just start my filter there to find those quickly. I can also create favorites. So I could right-click the service here and say add to favorites. I can also color code, make this one red, delete, I want it to be red, make the text red. This system also remembers which panels you have expanded and collapsed. So if I collapse all of them except for document functions, and then come up here and search for a note, it will appear, even though it was in a menu that I didn't have expanded. However, when I release my filter, it goes back and only has expanded what I had before. So it's quite flexible in how you go ahead and use that. So everything that you used to do should be available in the document actions for the features that have been released. And as we add more features, they will appear in the document actions as well. Now I mentioned we can dock that, so let's go ahead and do that now. Under my user options, there's a layout tab, and in here there's a float actions menu. If I tick that off, then I get a choice of how I want it to appear. So if we look here in the background right now, if I reload this record, we have the document tree, then we have the details box. Even when I don't have it, if I want to keep it floating, I can switch those over if I want to. I can have the details on the left and the tree on the right. And when I turn it off, now I get 6 available options. So do I want the tree, then the details, then the actions menu? Maybe I want the actions menu, then the tree, then the details. And every user gets to set it the way they like it. And the funny thing is, of all the staff in the office, I think every one of us has it all a little different. Some have it floating, some have it docked to the left, some have it docked to the right, and it's great that that flexibility is available. You do need to close and reopen document entry after you've made a change here, as it does require to regenerate the whole HTML. So I'm going to save it. I'm just going to close my doc entry and reopen it. And now it is docked. And we can see here, rather than floating, it's just available here. I can resize it. It will remember that. If you want to get it out of the way for right now, you've got minimize and maximize buttons available to you here. So that's the new actions menu. I'm just going to load up a different record here. Let's have a look at the changes that have happened in the tree. Firstly, we've added multi-icons to the tree. And the reason that we've done that is it can be very difficult in the classic software if a line has serials, it's been invoiced, it's currently held. The icon that will appear is the held icon, because that's I guess the icon that wins and probably the most important one at that time. What we wanted to do is take that and give you more information. So what we've done is made multiple icons. So we can see here my service icon and it's currently held. If I hover over that, it will actually tell me entry is held and it cannot be posted. If I look at this one down here, entry has been posted one time. That's my posted flag. So I can look with a quick glance and see the different icons and know the different status of every line, even if it's got multiple things going on. We're all familiar with the details panel over here on the right. As I move up and down, it's showing me information that I've set to look at. That hasn't changed. That's the same as the desktop. What you can do now, however, is you can just hover over an icon to see that same information. That means that I can really look at two things at the same time. So I'm currently on the header, so I'm seeing the header information here, and I can look at individual icons here to see their details. I could look at a phase to see its totals or what have you, whatever's in there, and I can see that information at a glance. We've added in filtering into the grid, into the tree as well. Filtering, as you've probably already seen, has become a big thing in the web screens for us. So I can come up here and I can just start typing. So if I just type toner, it waits a few seconds to make sure that I've finished typing, and then it will automatically filter. It makes the panel green, so I know a filter's in place. So if I start saying, oh my God, where's the certain phase gone? I can see that I've got a filter in play. It's always going to show you the root nodes, so we can see toner here, but it still does show me the task it was on, the equipment that it was on, the phase, and the header is always visible. I can use that to find any line in the job. And as the software moves forward, you'll be able to take that filter and apply it to other features, and basically say, run this feature, but only on the lines that have been filtered. And that's something that you'll see as we get into the software and as it evolves over the next few years. You can also do an advanced search. So if I wanted to find all of the black toner and the cyan toner, I can of course type black and cyan here like this, but that's going to be looking for that string, black cyan, which is not going to work. So I can come over and I can do an advanced search, and I can say black or cyan. And now I've got black or cyan. You can continue typing, add another or, add another and, whatever you need there. And there's a little handy hover over the advanced that just reminds you of how to do that. It's not case sensitive, but the words and an or do need to be in uppercase because you might actually be looking for the word or. So we've just made that uppercase like that to enforce that. The last thing that I want to show here is the advanced search. That's had quite a few changes as well. It's going to look fairly similar to what is available on the desktop, but it has had some changes. Firstly, if I just do a quick text-based search, now I've just searched for toner. I could have used my filter here. It is visible. I just can't think of any value that's not visible to search on right now, but it is doing a search in the data. So it can be searching on values that the user may not have visible in their label there. So what we've done to help with that is when you highlight a line that's been searched, it will tell you over here where it found that. So toner was found in the description. And that can be really useful if I run another search. If I come up here and I can say compound find, which means don't clear the current find, do another one, and I'll search for labor. Two things are going to happen. One, each search that you run will get a different color. And now when I look, I can see labor was found in the service code. So if I've left my search going, I'm dealing with these records, I'm going through them, maybe I take a call, I take a break, I come back, I've lost sort of focus of where I was. Now it will remind me what I was searching for in each of these things. We've also given you the ability to add custom searches. They are just simple tick boxes, but they can go through any level of the data and find the records for you. So if you've got one of your customers who always is show me, tasks that are the actual duration is greater than the estimate duration, and I don't believe I'll have any on this, you can set that up. And we've got two examples in there for you out of the box, but you can add as many as you need to there. These tick boxes also now know what type of records they operate on. So if I say find by detail type, these tick boxes have all gone because they don't relate to a phase. They're all things that don't check inside a phase. They're all things that check in other things. If I come down and choose equipment, I'm not seeing any, but if I go to my custom search, this one is find equipment with. So this will help inform your users what tabs, what record types are being filtered when you do these different searches. And the last thing I'll show you here is you can also, if I go toner here, say apply results to the tree. and you'll see this says ** search results, and it's also filtered out those results as well. So not just highlighted them, but filtered them out. So those are some of the new features in the tree. We've added new features to our recent menu, which is up here. I didn't show you, so I'm just going to pop over here. Recent menus have also been added to most of the other primary UIs. So when I come to my site UI, I've got a recent menu here as well. The equipment UI has a recent menu. A lot of the UIs now have recent menus where they didn't before. But in document entry, which has always had a recent menu, the change that we've made here is that it is by type. So if I open a quote, I'm just going to clear that record. Then I open a template and clear that one. If I look at my recent menu, now it's recent jobs, recent quotes, and recent templates. So rather than having a single list of 10, now there's 10 by type. So it's able to store that. And that's really great if you do use a couple of templates all the time, but you're loading lots of jobs, those templates won't disappear out of your recent. They'll always be available for you and you can access them quickly. It's a small change, but one that we think is quite useful. All right, let's have a look at our assignments and what's happened with those. So previously assignments were in the tree under the phase, and we've moved those out as they weren't something that people interacted with constantly. They did add a lot of visual clutter to the UI, and we found hopefully a better way for those to be done. And that is we've moved them into a tab, and inside that tab, I'm just gonna make this a little wider now. We of course have all of our features available for the tab. So the first thing I can show you is if you need to, you can just drag, and now you've got your phase by, your assignments by phase. So you can get back to what you were looking at before very quickly by using this grid. However, you might want to do that by resource. And now here's Alison, and I can see she's on the general phase and the training phase. So before you'd have to scroll up and down the phase list to find which one they were allocated to. So now you can, of course, just group by that. Or if you have it grouped by phase, I could have just typed A and B over here and seen which phase she's on. So I can absolutely get the same functionality. We've just moved it out. So it is a little bit different. If I go to assign, and I've purposely moved off the assignment tab, and remember, I can reorder my tabs as needed. I can make totals my first tab if I want. When I go to add an assignment, it will automatically move me to the assignments tab. And if I go ahead and add WDF, who is not currently assigned to either phase, so I'm going to drag him over here onto this phase, we'll see it adds the node in there into the grid. So same functionality, we've just moved it around a little bit, and it's a little less there if you're not caring about assignments. And as everybody probably knows, as soon as you add somebody to the calendar in advanced scheduling, they're automatically assigned to the job. So most people now focus more on the calendar than the assignments, and we took the opportunity to declutter the tree and move them out here. But you can still access them as needed over here. Let's have a look at serials and lots and where they've gone. So previously they were in the tree and people would turn them off because they didn't need to see them once they invoiced them. But what we've done here, and then you'd have to open up the individual items to find the serials. What we've done here is we've also taken the opportunity and we have moved these out of the tree. You do see a new icon here that we hadn't seen before, which is the serial icon beside an item here indicating that it has serials. That icon is dual purpose. So if I come along and add in this item, which has both serials and lots, when I hover over that one's icon, it will say it tracks serials and lots. So it's one icon, but it indicates that it has either serials, lots, or both. When I come to my tab here, I get a list of all the serial numbers. But we're in our grid, so we can filter. If I'm looking for serial number 127, I can quickly find that. It is context sensitive, so as I move around, it's going to be showing and hiding the serials and or lots based on the record that I'm currently on. Not only that, it's context sensitive the other way. So if I come in here and I click on a serial, it will automatically select the matching item in the tree for me. So imagine I'm coming in, I want to credit a specific serial number. I just go to my serials and lots tab, and I'm going to credit serial number 12. So I just type in 12 here. And unfortunately, there's a few of them. I chose a really bad one, but it's this top one here, and I can see here posting, what have you. I could have typed the invoice number. Double click. It's going to bring me to the item. It's going to open the item, and it's going to bring me to the serial number tab. And I can get to my work. So that's the change to the serials, and the lots work the same. I just don't have any lots in here, but they're just the same. They've got a lot grid and it works the same way. Select a lot, it'll select the item, so on and so forth. You can also see something that I haven't shown you in the grid. When I double click here, it opens the item record. However, you can see I've got multiple hyperlinks, and a lot of the grids will have multiple hyperlinks. So this one enables to go to the invoice, and I can open up the invoice here. And I can also open up the item. And so multiple grids can have different sets of hyperlinks depending on what data is being displayed. These hyperlinks are security sensitive, so if the user wouldn't have the ability to go into that UI normally, then this simply just wouldn't be a hyperlink, it'll just be text. Let's have a look at our financials. We currently don't have the summary tab. That'll be coming in a future version. But a lot of information that we've given you here with the filtering and stuff can help you get that same information out today. But one thing we do have is a new financials tab. And in here, we show the postings and the payments, separated on individual tabs here. The benefit here, of course, is I now have customizability. I can run a chart here on my postings. I can customize the columns being displayed in this list. I can sort, filter, order, do all of those sorts of things as needed. Take advantage of those grid functionalities we've already shown you today. So that's the new financials tab. Let's have a quick look at the totals. Not much has changed there, but we did want to highlight a couple of features. The totals work the same as they've always worked. As I move up and down the tree, I'm going to be seeing the totals for the thing that I've got selected. So highlight the header, I'm seeing the totals for the whole record, so on and so forth. None of that has changed. What has changed is just two small things. One, we've added a hover. So as I move my mouse up and down, it just helps with that, left to right vision of seeing which one that I'm currently looking at. It's a small change, but we think it's quite useful. The other one that I've done is, imagine my sales manager messages me, and I don't know, out on the road or what have you, and he says, I need the revenue figures for that job that we're working on. So I come over here and I can clip to clipboard, but then I have to go in and edit and remove all the things I don't want them to see. So what I can do now is I can just right click, and depending on this particular job has literally everything, WIP, budgets, all of it. But I can go through and I can just say, hide the budget, hide the costs, hide the WIP. And now I'm just getting the revenue, and I've got some task information at the bottom, and I could clip that, or just, you can actually just copy and paste like that, and that goes into Outlook a little nicer than text-based, but I can clip to clipboard and I'm done. There's a reset option here to reset the columns, but it doesn't persist. So as soon as I move and come back, I get all of my things. We don't want anyone to think that they've lost their totals. So it's just a one-off session-based thing as you use it to help you see those details a bit quickly. And of course, I can hide the revenue as well if I just want to see the cost. So, I can hide any of those groups of columns. The last thing I want to show you in here, and I know we are going fast, but we've still got a few things to cover and we don't have much more time, is the new query. So we've integrated the Technisoft Discover program into the document entry directly using this query icon here. And you can think of this as a way to build up a worksheet of your tasks that you're going to work on today. Now I've got 2 saved, so I'm just going to bring those in. So I'm going to say postable jobs, and this is just for me, so I can just call it whatever I want. That's going to go off to the Discover program. And here are my saved ones that I've already saved, and I've got one called postable jobs. So I go ahead and run that. And now I have a list of jobs that are postable. I click on the hyperlink and it just loads that record. Come back to my query, open up the next one. I'm going through this list, looking at whether I am posting them or not posting them, that sort of thing. You can have multiple queries in here. So if I do jobs that need schedule, and of course I've got jobs with no schedule, I've already done that one. I've now got a separate list. And as we can see, I can just switch between them. So these are my worksheets for the day. Now I'm going to open up job 42 here, which if I come back to my query, just to give you context, this is jobs that need schedule, job 42. So I'm going to go ahead and add a schedule. If I bring my query back up, job 42 is still there, but if I refresh, it's gone. So you can think of this query system as almost like a worksheet of the things that I want to work on right now. And as I do, hopefully the tasks that I've queried the system for, the list will be reducing as I go. That's it for document entry for now. Let's have a quick look at advanced scheduling. So in advanced scheduling for our first version, we've got the calendar view is the main view available, and a lot of the functionality in the calendar view should be here. Now, the main change is the new way you operate with that, and that's done via its action menu. Now, this one is not dockable because of obviously the size of it. It's got grids inside. It would not make sense if you were to try to dock that, and these columns would be very small. So what we've tried to do is make this very operable. It, of course, remembers its position, size, those sorts of things, so you can move it to where it makes sense. You can always just close it and reopen it whenever you need. You can also click anywhere on the title bar to collapse it or expand it. Once it's collapsed, you can move it out of the way, move it down here, whatever you need to do. And there's also a partial collapse, which takes away all of the filters and everything, but just gives you the ability to change these flags at the top here. The bigger your real estate, the less, the more space you have to move this around as needed. All of the things that you should be familiar with in Advanced Scheduler should be inside here. So coming in and turning on and off employees is done through here. Highlighting a record and seeing the tasks that are on there or the equipment that are on there is all available here as it was in Advanced Scheduling on the Classic. Doing your color coding by different things is all available in here as well. It's just a new way of accessing it. We've also worked on the job tree. So here's the job tree. Firstly, it takes all of the settings from your document entry, so your multi-icons, all of that sort of stuff are available. We added a new hover on the note, which will print out the first 500 characters of the note for you. You can turn things on and off in here. If I don't want to show notes, I can turn them off. If I don't want to show assignments, if I don't want to show billing groups, I can turn those off. If we never assign our work at the billing group or task level, I can turn that off to keep my screen a little less busy, and it will reload. And you can see there were 2 tasks on this job and they've disappeared. If I reload that back in, there they go. It was just 1, sorry. You can also now drag, so I can just drag directly from the tree in here, equipment 56, and it's equipment 56. As I move between jobs, it loads that particular job that I've got selected. But what I can also do now is I can just load my own job. So I just get a call from somebody, hey, we just created job 50, can you quickly schedule it? So I come in, job 50, and now I can schedule it. So those are some of the changes made to the job tree in the web version. There's a new agenda view, which shows the employees based on their agenda for the day. And that's a handy one. You can just clip that one, or they can look at it very easily, which wasn't available on the Classic. The new query system that I showed you in document entry is here as well. So if I do new query, I won't give this one a name just for time's sake here. I'll run that same query, jobs with no schedule. So this is great. I can share my saved queries with document entry that I use in AS as well. And the difference here, of course, is there's no difference in terms of usability. I can rename, I can edit, I can refresh, I can do all the same things. But when I drag, I'm dragging the whole job onto my calendar instead of loading it up. The last thing I want to show you is the changes in the time entry UI itself. Firstly, when we select a document, we've got our recent list here. This will remember not only the recent job, but if you assigned it to a certain phase, a certain equipment, and I select that, it will try to choose the same record. You'll also see in there that I can, when I add a job in here, I get the whole document tree to do my mapping. So in the past, if you remember the old screen, you would choose the phase. Once you choose the phase, it would load the equipment. You choose the equipment, it would load the tasks and billing group. Now I just get the whole tree, and I've got my filter here. So if I'm looking for a certain piece of equipment, I can go ahead, filter, and select that. And I get a partial copy of the tree to show me where this time entry is mapped to. So that's a new change. We've also changed how you enter time. So you can still, of course, type minutes. You've also got a drop down here with some handy quick times. But we also allow, you can still do your 1.5s, that sort of thing. And it's always going to show you what that's going to convert to. But what you can also do now is a little more English. So I can say 4 hours and 21 minutes. And when I tab away, it's going to calculate that for me. Got a handy little button here to remind you of the values that you can enter here. And we support weeks, days, hours, and minutes. So if I was to do 1 week, 3 days, 4 hours, and 5 minutes, and tab away, it will calculate that out for me. Obviously, the most common one is, they were there for 2 hours and 21 minutes. And when I save that, if I come back in, it doesn't remember that, it reverts it back to your minutes there for you. So those are some of the changes that we've done here. And most of the places where you can enter time has that new ability to enter with the hours, days, minutes, that sort of thing. We are integrated into CRM out of the box using the new web screens integration. Quickly, some of the places, if I open up a company here, you've probably, if you're using CRM today with Sage 300 web screens, you're used to being able to open up the AR customer, for example. Well, now you've also got Service Manager sites, and I can drill to my site record from in here. This is not a special CRM UI, it's just the standard UI that you would get if you were accessing it from the web screen. So all the functionality is available through CRM. You got your searches up here. So you've got service documents, service site, service equipment. So here's a list of my documents. I've got some filters that I can apply here, or of course I can use the grid in its filter. So it's the standard grid I can customize, chart, all of that through CRM, can drill to my job. Our old software used to integrate with opportunities and cases. That hasn't changed. The one thing that has changed in here is when I come to Service Manager documents, I can have multiple now. So I can create multiple quotes for an opportunity, convert multiple jobs, quotes into jobs. I can take a quote off there's an include here, include in totals, which will remove that from the quotes totals and the opportunities totals. So much more flexibility on how I do that integration. And those values are updating, your orders, your quote amounts, that sort of thing, the invoice amount when they're invoiced all gets updated in the background as well. Not only that, but if you edit the record through the web screens as well. So if I come over into document entry here, I'm not even in CRM anymore. And I'll just grab that number out. So I just happen to enter it over here. It knows that it's connected to CRM. Actually, I'm going to make this much bigger. Right, so I think in CRM the current total was, what's the current total here? 6,000. And I'm editing this externally of CRM. You'll see here, it knows, and it tells me that that's been updated. And if I come back here, you can see that's been updated. So there's no syncing or anything like that needed. You don't need to reopen the opportunity. If you're editing it just via the standard web screen, CRM will be updated, which means pipelines are updated, that sort of thing as well in the background. So the integration is much tighter and just operates through the web screen layer. And lastly, when you install Service Manager for Web, you get a copy of Discover for free. If you're using Discover for the other modules, you want to use it for the other modules, then that's where you need to license the product. But by default, you'll get all of your dashboards and things like that available for Service Manager out of the box for no charge. And we've also used Discover to replace certain icons in Service Manager that you may be familiar with. So when we come down and we run a Discover query, which we already ran a few of them via document entry and via Advanced Scheduler, that just opened up Discover in the background. But if we want to run them manually, we've got Document Search, which replaces the Document Query program on the Classic desktop. We've got Notation Search, which replaces Notation Manager on the Classic desktop. And we have Task Search, which replaces Task Manager on the Classic desktop. We also have added in Equipment Search, Posting Search, and Site Search as well. And inside each of those, there's a bunch of search criteria you can use to find records. Well, we hit our hour, so we will open up for questions now, comments. Is anybody already using web screens? Feel free to add anything into the chat or unmute yourself if you want to ask questions. Would love to hear any feedback that you have. If you've got anybody using the screens or about to use the screens, let us know. And if anybody has any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Well, I don't have a question as much as a comment. Wow, incredible, congratulations.
Thank you, Jaime, appreciate that.
I second that. I got to tell you, Jeffrey, why can't Sage hire you guys to do their web screens?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, great job, guys. Yeah, it looks incredible, super deep, and the performance was a little surprising, to be honest with you. Are you like Hyper-Ving something super computer, or is this what we should expect?
No, I am on a Hyper-V here, just on my system. It's just a virtual machine running on a fairly standard virtual platform that I've got here. Obviously, I'm the only user using it right now. But having said that, Chris is on the call as well, is probably laughing at the amount of work that I've taken personally. I make sure that, every optimization that I can do between the back end, the server, and the client in terms of the data being sent backwards and forwards, the amount of calls going backwards and forwards. We've spent a lot of time on optimizing that, as we know that this is going to be our foundational software for the next, hopefully, good amount of years. We wanted to get that right at the start for our screens. So we haven't just replicated what we had on the desktop. We wanted to make sure that those things were taken into account and thought about, and we have spent a lot of time on making sure. So really, I think that was you. Was that you speaking, Peter? It's hard to see the names. We wanted to make sure that
great job.
Yeah. So we definitely have that has been a focus. That's not something that was just happened. That's actually been a focus. Anybody else got any questions? I got 26 people on the call, so hopefully there's a few questions there. Feel free to ask.
Daniel, I know you've mentioned in the past that one of the biggest problems with the web screens is the versioning, that you cannot just install a update or a PU. It has to be a whole thing. Is that still correct?
Yes, and that won't change, Jaime. So the web SDK that we're provided by Sage that we build this on, there's a new SDK per product update with Sage, and of course we need to be moving with them as that goes forward. There we will check I guess you'd say down the chain in product updates. So Sage have committed to us that product update 1 and product update 2 of each version will contain, feature changes, possibly SDK changes, things like that. Once they go beyond product update 2, 2023 being its own thing, we understand there's the security changes there. Normally product update 3, 4, 5, etc of Sage, core Sage modules don't contain anything. So in those cases, our product update 2, for example, should work on Sage product update 4. However, if that's not the case, then there will be a matching version required, and that's just something that you'll need to do. Now, the install of our web screens, once you've already got Sage web screens up and running, takes approximately 2 minutes. So just download the installer, uninstall the old version, reinstall the new version. Takes about 2 minutes on the web server. You do obviously need to shut the web services down so it can overwrite the files. So it does still mean getting your users out of the system. We understand that, but that is one of the things that you need to do. But yes, that version control will stay. Now, 5 years in the future, when the SDK, when Sage is at full parity with their software, so therefore the SDK is not moving forward, that may be able to be relaxed. But for now, that is going to be maintained for a while to come. So thank you, Jaime. That was a good question.
So what version of 2023 are you compatible with you? PV 1, 2, or 3?
3.
Okay.
Only 3. One thing I forgot to show you, I didn't have an opportunity, sorry, and I just remembered then. We do have a new locking UI that I haven't had a chance to show you. So previously the locks were in the semaphore file. Obviously, once you're in the web, you can't really, users shouldn't have any ability to go to the folders. So, how do you clear a lock, that sort of thing. There's also some chances that locks don't release as naturally as they do on the desktop. Web screens, web browsers in general, the on-close event can be quite unreliable between even versions of the same, Chrome today versus Chrome next week could be different. So what we've provided for you now is under the utilities, a new locking menu here. And inside here, it shows all the things that are currently locked, and you can free those locks directly from in here. We've also given you the ability, if you were the person that locked this, let's say you locked job 50, your web screen crashed, you come back in, it will say you had this lock, do you want to re-obtain the same lock? And you get that option as well. So some changing around locking. You can also filter in here by the different locks that have been applied by the user, that sort of thing. Find the locks, clear them. So just keep in mind that that's a new thing, and that is on the desktop as well. Locking is global, so there's a new locking UI on the desktop as well, and you would free the locks the same way. No more semaphore file for Technisoft. It's all in the locking UI. So keep that in mind with 2023 and moving forward.
So you're saying that we can unlock a record that is locked from another module?
Other modules, we don't have any control over how they do their locking. We're just talking about Technisoft here.
Okay, because I saw RMA there. Oh, that was your RMA. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that's ours. Any other questions, guys, ladies? Susie, I know you're there. You must have a question. She's being shy today.
Yeah, no questions, but I do
echo
Jaime's comment that it's been a long time coming, but well worth the wait. This is going to be a game changer. It's really great.
We appreciate that. Thank you. And there will be a number of things that you just notice that we don't have time to show everything today, obviously. We had a goal of 80%. We wanted to make sure that we replicated 80% of the current functionality. We don't want to put onto you, and certainly onto our clients, a whole bunch of training. We want them to be able to open the screens and say, okay, I can get around here. It may take 5 minutes to navigate to the new buttons and things like that, but everything should sort of be where it was before. But there's lots of little changes that people will note, like the service center bar has disappeared, but it's available. It shows you up here. And if I hover over it, it will actually show me the address. So little things like that. We've got the status hyperlink here, which will show me what I can do when the job is in certain statuses. So there'll be lots of little things like that that people notice. When you create a new job, all of the options that you have to save the job first before you could get to the options are now available as you're creating it. So I choose my customer, I choose my site. Now I come over and I choose, I'm doing budgets, I'm doing this. It's all done in the single screen. So there's these subtle changes that hopefully people will just see and figure out what's different there and how that works. It's the same. These text boxes have the same labels. They do the same thing. If I tick on use custom fields, I get the same finder appearing. None of that has changed. It just might be in a slightly different place, that sort of thing. So hopefully you'll notice lots of different things in there as well. Things like the comment window. The agreement selector has changed, but it's still the agreement selector. This comment window has changed. How that operates has changed. But they're still there. The credit thing, the UI is pretty much the same on that one. All of these things are still there. They just might be ever so slightly different. So hopefully your users are okay with that and just are able to get on board and work straight away.
Hey, Daniel, this is Marie. Good job.
Hi, Marie.
Exciting
Thank you.
to see.
Thank you. We appreciate it. It's been a lot of work for the team, and we're glad that everybody seems to like it. Okay, if there's no other questions, I will go ahead and we'll end the meeting. As I said, there will be a recording available probably later today that will go out, maybe linked on the website, or an email will come out to you. Really appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully your customers get great use out of the web screens, and we'd love to hear any feedback that you have over the next 6 to 12 months as they use them, as you migrate. Anything you need to know, let us know. We also have a compatibility chart that Mark can email you if you need it, indicating what features are available in web screens versus the classic software. And of course, it's not going anywhere, so you can run these two in conjunction. So if a feature is missing on the web, you can always access it from the classic software as well. So thank you everybody today for your time. I know for some of you it's getting quite late. If there's no more questions, I'll just let everybody hop off and have a great rest of your day.